Hi, I'm Terry Kyle, the co-founder of WPX.net, and I'm also the founder of everydogmatters.eu, which is our attempt to change the future trajectory of animal welfare as it relates to dog shelters. And it's my pleasure today to welcome Joe. And Joe is, there you are. So Joe runs yourlifestylebusiness.com. Joe is also a WPX customer, has been using us for a while, and we'll get to interrogate Joe a little bit later about that. But firstly, Joe, can you tell us about your journey of leaving, quote unquote, normal life behind and traveling the world with your family?
Sure. So basically it all started back in 2010. Both my husband and I lived in the UK. He's actually originally from Australia, but he was living in the UK for about 10 years before we met. And so we were living in the UK. We had a couple of businesses. We got pretty wrecked by the 2008 crash, and we were quite depressed, and the UK was a bit depressing at the time, and we were dreaming of being able to travel the world, and wouldn't it be amazing if we had enough money to be able to travel the world, but we didn't at the time. And we had a good friend of ours who was living in Cyprus, and he had an internet-based business, and so we went out for a couple of weeks to spend some time with him to sort of see what that was all about, and had the crazy idea that maybe we would be able to actually travel and run a business all from our computer, which back in 2010 did sound like a bit of a crazy idea. It doesn't anymore, but it did back then. So it just so happened actually that our friend was in London. This was like a few months later after the idea had a bit of time to germinate, and he was in London with his girlfriend, and they were going traveling for the whole summer. And I said, oh, you don't want a house sitter by any chance, do you? And they said, sure. And so we basically sold everything we owned. We had a rental house in Nottingham at the time. We sold everything we owned in a week. And we grabbed our 4-year-old daughter and a couple of suitcases, packed up and moved over to Cyprus we were there in the end. We were only supposed to be there 6 weeks, but I think in the end we were there for about 4 or 5 months. And I started building my business while we were in Cyprus on a balcony overlooking the sea caves near Paphos. It was beautiful. And we haven't looked back since. That was literally it. We started building our online businesses and have now traveled to 35 plus countries. I've lived in Thailand for quite a long time while my daughter goes through school. Have traveled all over the world.
Brilliant. Love it. Generally, Joe, people don't believe they can love what they're doing for a living and be able to do it from anywhere in the world. I'm curious about what is your secret, and I know it was a long time ago when you made that decision to change to that lifestyle, but do you remember anything significant? Because it's really about belief. You've got to have some kind of, you've got to take that leap of faith, and there's some necessary belief there, and a lot of people don't have that. So can you pinpoint something that changed for you in your belief and your particular secret on just getting you from maybe thinking about it to the action taking of doing it?
Yeah, I think one thing that holds a lot of people up is that they believe that they have to find their passion before they can start to do anything. They think, I can't find my passion, or I don't know what it really is I'm supposed to do, or I don't know if I'm going to really enjoy doing that or whatever. And I think sometimes, well, not sometimes, all the time, you just have to do it. You just have to try everything. Especially in the early days when you've got very little to lose. So if you don't have a big audience and you don't have a big business and you don't have lots of money sunk into anything or whatever, and you do have the opportunity to just try different things, and now, some 13 years on, there's so many more chances to try so much other stuff than there was back when I started. It's so easy now to go online, onto social media, onto TikTok or something, and just try a new business model, a new niche, a new interest, something, and to see how it works. So my motto really, I think, is to people is just do something. even if you don't know that that's definitely the thing that you want to do forever, it doesn't matter. Just do something, because all the time you're doing, you're learning and you're clarifying then the things that you do want to do and the things that you don't want to do. And you start to find your path as you're actually doing, rather than thinking, and never really getting it off the ground.
Yeah, I think we live in a golden age of information, education, access, and opportunity. And when I was growing up, I was always pretty entrepreneurial, but there was no internet, nothing like that. And the idea of a business is you take out a massive loan and you open a restaurant or have some other kind of crazy, stressful sort of real world business. And you can start any good digital business for virtually nothing now. It's a crazy golden age, I think.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah. Joe, how does your platform help people through some of these challenges? Well, what have you specifically built that helps your target audience to take these action steps and set up this digital lifestyle traveling?
Sure. Well, it's funny because I started my brand, Your Lifestyle Business. I actually started in 2019. It's a bit of a hobby brand, actually. And it's really kind of a culmination of my life's lessons, if you like, since I started building a business in 2010. So, first of all, the actual blog itself, I mean, my blog posts are behemoths. I mean, they're ridiculous. I write like 19,000 word blog posts. They should be books. And I need to change some of them into books, because nobody's going to read a 19,000 word blog post. But it basically takes the reader step by step. I want to give everything in my post and not leave anything out. So if somebody comes to my blog and says, I want to start an Amazon FBA business, there is a post there that literally walks them through every single step they need to take in order to build that business. And the same with if they want to go and start an affiliate marketing business, or if they want to go and do an email marketing business, or if they want to go and start an online course or anything. Because over the last 13 years, I've pretty much done every online digital business model you can think of. Most of them I've tried at some point. I haven't succeeded with them all, but most of them I've tried. And so first of all, on my blog, I really go into a lot of detail and give a lot of information on the how to. There are really sort of three challenges I see my target market having. The first is, what should I do? The second is, how should I do it? And the third one is, I don't believe I can do it. That's probably the biggest one, actually. And there is plenty of how should I do information out there. And that's kind of what my blog does. My I don't believe I can do it, that's more my email series. I have an email series that goes out every Monday. It's called Make It Happen Monday. And it's more about the mindset behind becoming a lifestyle entrepreneur than the what should you do. So it's kind of a, come on, take action this week and go and try this, or go and do that. Or, some of the typical things like, what would you do if you think you couldn't fail? Or what are 3 actions you can take this week to move yourself out of your comfort zone? And just trying to encourage people to take the steps forward to do what they maybe don't believe they can do. And then part of my brand also addresses the what should I do through videos and content, just basically saying, look, here's all the different business models you could try. Get out there and try one. And I also have a video called What to Do If You Don't Know What to Do, which basically says exactly what I've just said to you, which is just do something. So the brand really is just the whole brand. Your Lifestyle Business is targeted at people who really want to build a freedom business, a business that they can run, not just from anywhere in the world, but from their kitchen table, their coffee shop down the road, whatever.
If I could just share with you, Joe, and my aim here is always to empower and be constructive. And I think it's easy for people like you, and I used to do quite a bit of this kind of thing in the SEO space a long time ago. It's very easy to look at all these other, gurus and teachers and things like that out there who are also, teaching somewhat similar content, shall we say. But I think that's perfectly fine because A, the audience is massive, but B, sometimes it takes a different person to explain something in a particular way for it to really click and connect. So
yes.
I'll give you a very weird example here of something that clicked for me recently. I'm not a super big fan of going to the dentist. But I'm good about it now. I'm pretty disciplined and all of that. And my dentist, she said to me, she said, if you like coming to the dentist and seeing me, don't floss your teeth. But if you don't want to come and see me, then do floss your teeth. And it just clicked in a way that I'm like a maniacal flosser now, like always doing that. And even though there are lots of posters everywhere and all this information, you got to floss or whatever, something never just quite clicked for me. And I think it just takes somebody to explain something in a different way, and you go, that's it, I get it now. To come back to something you were talking about with passion, I think if you can make a living from something you're passionate about, that's fantastic. But in my experience, it's not the reality for most people who haven't really identified that thing that they're incredibly passionate about. Or it could be that they're actually not very good at something they're passionate about. They might be passionate about football, but they actually can't play at all, and they don't even have necessarily the skill set to build a business around football or sewing or aquariums, whatever it might be. So often we're not good. I mean, there are things that I love, but I just completely suck at. I'm terrible at them, but I enjoy as an audience or as a consumer. And I think, I forget who said this recently, but it really connected with me, that something that is better than following your passion is winning at business. So, and if you're doing that, this opens up loads of options. And for me as a teacher, I've always been very centered on the idea of building options, believable, credible options into the minds of my students. Because it's one thing for us to build giant universities or schools or whatever, but the students who go there, do they actually believe they can have a different life and participate in all these sort of, great options that we have before us now in life? And a lot of the times they don't. Because, upbringing, I came from a relatively poor upbringing, very blue collar in Australia. And the idea of travel or university, that's stuff like from deep space. Like nobody in our family is going to do that stuff. When it's all completely doable, those are good options if they're right for you. So I love the core of what you're doing here and the messages here. It's really just about believing that you can actually participate in all those options. And as we talked about, it's never been easier than right now.
No.
So,
and I also do think that, I think if people also follow their curiosity and their interest, so rather than really focusing and honing in on passion, if they actually just say, well, what am I curious about? What do I want to? A lot of the businesses that I've started over the years have come off the back of, what do I want to learn? What is it I really want to learn right now? What are some things that are happening in the world that I'm really curious and interested about? And if I start a business to learn about that subject, that forces me to become accountable to, go onto social media or wherever I'm building my audience and update them regularly, which means I'm immersed in that particular subject and learning about it myself. And lots of people, if you come at it from that angle, to build an audience, which I think is super important, you get a lot of people following along because you're only a couple of steps in front of them. So you resonate. Like if I now go and listen to a crypto podcast, let's say, I'm lost. It's gone. They're all too far advanced. I can't even catch up. I don't know all the words. But if I start to learn about crypto and build an audience of people who want to learn, they're all going to be right along with me. And so, I'm digressing, but just going with your curiosity and your interest as well is a great way to get started rather than focusing on your passion. Yeah,
and you might have a natural skill that can be easily channeled into something in digital business. But if you look at something like those dummies books, all those books for dummies, they've sold like 200 million books plus and still going. That's where most people are. And I call this the niche pyramid. So in any niche, the audience at the bottom of the pyramid, who are the people who have some interest, some curiosity, they'd like to learn how to play this song on a guitar or whatever it might be. That's the mass audience. The guys who are the complete black belt kind of masters, that's tiny. You can't build a business with that unless you're phenomenally lucky or everything lines up for you. So
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that we need to work on with our students, and I think this is very much a now problem, is consistency and follow through. It's very, very easy to get distracted, and we're just kind of flooded with all these distraction choices. We know all the culprits here, TikTok and YouTube and all of that kind of thing, which are very seductive, very easy, very entertaining, but they're not necessarily moving us forward on life goals or business goals. And developing some mental discipline and consistency, I think, is extremely important.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm 100% with you there. It's so easy to just get lost on Twitter or
Yeah.
or Instagram or TikTok these days.
So, Joe, just in your opinion, and I'll share mine in a minute, what do you think are some of the most valuable tools out there now for entrepreneurs, like in the digital space? Tools and resources?
Yeah, I think resources, I'll start with resources, if that's right. The first thing I really would do is find a mentor who you really resonate with. So don't watch a gazillion YouTube videos or follow a gazillion TikTok accounts or Instagram accounts. My advice now, and always has been actually for years, is try and find maybe 2 or 3 people that you really resonate with. You love to listen to them. They fire you up in your belly. They make you want to take action. And they're also doing what you want to do. They're already kind of a few steps in front of you or whatever, and they're doing and living the kind of lifestyle you want or running the kind of business you want to run. And you can basically now have a mentor 24/7. It's not like the old days where you would try and email out people and say, oh, could you mentor me? Now you can literally read their books, watch their YouTube videos, listen to their podcasts, and just take all that knowledge. So resources to really fire you up and get you started, you are absolutely surrounded by with podcasts, books, etc. As far as tools are concerned, obviously, WPX, got to throw that in there. For me, and we'll talk a bit more about this in a second, but certainly if you're running any kind of website, any kind of blog or website for your brand, that you want the most reliable and speediest host out there. Believe me, I've tried a lot over the years before I came over to WPX. And we'll talk about that in a second. So that's definitely a key tool. But other than that, I mean, we are just literally in the world of amazing tools right now. I mean, is there anybody on the planet that's not excited by AI? Because I can tell you now, as a content creator, I am literally rolling in the golden hay of AI every day at the moment. So definitely using AI, trying to understand AI, getting your head around it, even if you're not using it for anything in particular right now, just use it during the day, get onto ChatGPT, get onto Google Bard if you can get access to it, try out some of the tools and just start to get your head around the prompts and all that sort of stuff. You know, use it to write yourself a little blog post, or use it to write an email, or use it to write a sales letter, because what's being churned out at the moment isn't perfect. And the beautiful thing about it is learning how you can start to prompt it to give you better results. And certainly I'm not a coder, but I know that there's all these amazing apps and things now for people to go and start playing around and building their own apps and their own different things. So go and have a play with that. Midjourney and these AI art things, if you're that way inclined. So yeah, AI, I would say, is probably one of the biggest resources to hand at the moment for entrepreneurs. Yeah, I would say they're my biggest ones at the moment. Terry, what's yours? What do you think are some of the biggest?
Canva into the mix. Canva.
I've got Canva on my spreadsheet here actually, and I thought, shall I mention Canva? It's a great little tool, isn't it? Yeah.
Phenomenal. Some Australian guys created that, and they.
It was a woman.
It is.
It was
yeah.
an Australian woman.
Yeah. They had a pretty long road to get where they're at now, but. Actually, when you think about it, what I love is that it's such a simple idea, because forever I've been buying stock photos, stock videos, like 1 at a time or 5 at a time. It's crazy expensive. It's ludicrous. And they just came along with an all-you-can-eat model for whatever it is, $12 a month. And I wouldn't be surprised if they'll have every kind of Elementor, this program for building WordPress websites, all these other templates. They've got the resources now, and very usable. The libraries are huge. I think it's a total game changer. Canva, love it. I use it.
And you could create an entire lifestyle business just from Canva alone. So first of all, in fact, you could create a couple. First of all, you can go into Canva and you can amend different templates, and you can create whole sort of Canva templates in whatever niche you want to create them in, and you can go and sell the Canva templates for other Canva users, or you can create your own things using Canva, like digital planners, journals, templates, student handbooks, fitness workouts, whatever, wedding paraphernalia, and you can go and sell those on Etsy and places like that. So just using that tool of Canva, you've got some options there to build your own online business.
Yep, absolutely. I also use YouTube as an audio podcast platform. So YouTube's library is much bigger than Spotify, for example. And if I'm walking the dogs on the mountain, which I do almost every morning, and I've found somebody who I really connect with the style of, and I think that's another big thing in teacher-student relationship. You've got to find the people you connect with the style, their approach, their values, philosophy, all of that. So, for instance, for me, the guys in the Lamborghinis and the supermodels, I just can't connect with that style at all. I have a dog shelter. I deal with horrible reality every day. And so I prefer a much more kind of down-to-earth, give us the facts and explanation and talk through it without all of that, bling and stuff all over it. For me personally.
Yes.
Everybody's different. But YouTube actually, and I think they're modifying the platform very soon, if they haven't already, to get much better at just being audio podcasting platform, because the library is massive. Okay. And a lot of the videos on that, you actually don't need the visual, depending on what you're wanting to learn.
No, you just want to listen.
Audio. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just add another tool, actually? Just a productivity tool, just from my own experience, because I've always, I've always suffered a little bit with my time management. I'm still not as good as I'd like to be. But over the last couple of years, I started using Trello as my sort of time, my to-do list, if you like. And I really like Trello, but recently, the one thing that Trello didn't do for me, which I really didn't like, is that even though I could put in all my cards and have all of my to-dos, I couldn't say, right, this is priority 1 and I want to do that at 6 a.m. And that's my next priority and I want to do that at 8 a.m. And you could put in times and things like that, but they're just in your cards. You can't, there's no real, you can't just open an app and go, there's my jobs for today. So I found something called, and I'm going to have to look up my phone now to double check its name. It is called Planyway, Planyway, and it's free, but it's like an add-on for Trello. I can't remember what they're called now, the add-ons, but you can add it on, it's free. Yep. And then basically what you do every day is you just put all your Trello things into it, and you can just move them over like you can on Trello, just drag and drop into the actual timeline. So you can say, right, I want to do that at 6, I want to do that at 8, I want to do that at 10. And then it just gives you all your tasks for the day. So you don't even end up going into Trello anymore. You just look on Planyway and it says, here's all your tasks and you've got to stick to these times. And it's really cool. It's really helped me out using that on top of Trello.
And actually, what I call there is like when you piggyback on something else and you fix something that isn't quite right, that can be a huge digital business in its own right. We use Trello for the dog shelter, organising work there. But it's a great thing, and you have that with Excel, and you have it with lots of Skype and lots of other tools. I think there are huge opportunities out there for that as well. It's great. Okay, Joe, can you please describe a memorable success story from one of your students that completely changed their life through your influence, your guidance?
Sure.
You get to brag. You get to brag a bit here, Joe. It's all right. Yeah.
It's actually somebody who's become a really great friend over the years. So very, very early days, really early days. I was teaching. Do you remember Ryan Dice? He's still about. He's
digital marketer.
The heart of digital marketer. Yeah. So years and years ago, he had something called a tripwire. And you would go and advertise. It was a way to basically pay for your front end advertising costs on Facebook. So you would come up with an opt-in form. You would advertise it on Facebook. People would sign up, and then you'd have like a $7 offer or something. And then they would pay for that $7 offer. So now they're a buying customer, and they're then far more likely to buy what you're selling them next. A bigger offer, a course or coaching or whatever. And I was teaching that. I'd done it myself, and I'd built a list of about 50,000 email subscribers using that very strategy. And I was teaching that strategy to my students. And I had this mother and son team that were learning how to do it. And out of all the students I were teaching, they were kind of the action takers. They were the ones to go and do what I taught and make things happen. And so they did it, and they did all right. Anyway, a few years later, myself and my husband started our own Amazon FBA business, which we built extremely quickly. And I ran a course where I had a watch over our shoulder as we build this business. And we were selling a digital cooking thermometer. We were selling it for about $15, and we sold over 80,000 units in our first year. So we did over 7 figures with this little digital cooking thermometer in the first year. And the mother and son team came on board and started to follow what we were doing. So now they became friends, and the son, Dan, he's traveling the world. I'm not sure where he is right now. I think last I saw him, he was in Taiwan. He's been over to Thailand a few times. But his business, he transitioned off of Amazon, built his own Shopify store, started doing collaborations with influencers, and he has just exploded. He's got an amazing brand in the crafting niche, and he's just going great guns, and he's doing really, really well. And I'm super proud. I think total action takers and done really well. And one more very quick story. I won't name names, but one of our students went on to sell his Amazon business for $2 million about 5 or 6 years after we were. And I'm not going to take all the credit for that. We got him off the ground. And he built his brand while he was with us. And then when we stopped doing our course, I'm sure he got himself some other mentors on the road. But then he Facebooked me a couple of years ago just to say, "Hey, Joe, thanks for your help. I sold my business for $2 million." So
fantastic.
Yes, a couple of good success stories there.
Brilliant. There are quite a few for sale Amazon FBA stores on a brokerage called quietlight.com. I don't know if you know this one. You can go. We know Quietlight very well. We know Joe. Yeah. So 25 million, 20 million, 15 million for Amazon FBA stores, like huge money. Good luck to them.
Crazy.
Great result.
Crazy.
Okay. So, Joe, moving on through our list. I haven't got my reading glasses, and the light in this room is a bit weak, so I'm squinting a bit. So what message do you have for people who are just starting out, Joe, thinking about or almost about to begin their journey towards achieving their goals and their dreams? What's your advice for them?
It's going to sound really cliched, but you just have to do it. One of the things that constantly amazes me along the way is I'm certainly I'm not a 25-year-old wonder kid who is just incredible, a strategist and can see what's happening 10 years ahead or anything like that. I can't, I'm really not that person. And I kind of, it's slightly self-deprecating, but seriously, if I can go out and build an online business and live this kind of lifestyle, then anybody can. And I think one of the big things is imposter syndrome and having doubts is in all of us. It's not anybody who's out there thinking, oh yeah, sure, but I'm not very confident, or Matt, I don't think I can do it, or who's going to listen to me? That's one of my favorite. I'm going to write a book one day with the headline, "Who's going to listen to me anyway?" Because anybody and everybody is going to listen to you if you have got something that you feel can add value and help other people. And you'd be amazed at the amount of people who think exactly like you think. And so if you go and share what you're doing with those people, then those people are going to completely resonate with you and say, oh, me too. Yeah, I feel like that. Or I didn't understand that either. Or I'm so glad you're learning this and teaching it to me, or whatever. So I know it's cliche, and I know that people just say, oh, just go for it. And you think, oh, well, that's easier said than done. But, unfortunately, that kind of is it. You just have to kind of go and go for your dreams in spite of the fact that you have self-doubts, and in spite of the fact that you have imposter syndrome, and you have to just have faith that everybody else out there has it too, because we do, right? I mean, have you had it, Terry? I mean, my husband doesn't, but then he's something slightly different. But have you had it, Terry?
Of course. And I think one of the ways I think about this is it's getting from 0 to 1. And what I mean by that is you think about doing something. Let's just take something simple like, for me, years and years ago in London, I wanted to learn Wish You Were Here, Pink Floyd on guitar. So I had this fantasy, this idea that by the end of this year, it was January, February, I'm going to be able to play that song on a guitar. But if I don't get from the mental idea of that, the fantasy even, to having one guitar lesson, actually that was the hardest hurdle to overcome, just getting from 0 to 1 attempt. And then if you can get from 1 to 10, the view from 10th position, 10th tries, is way different from 0. And even from just getting to 1 is actually quite different from 0, because in that first attempt, you learn a lot about yourself, about what you need to do, what's going to make it better the next time. And the way you overcome all those things that you just talked about, Joe, is practice. So you just got to practice that stuff. So, the first website you and I both created probably looked awful, just terrible, garbage, it's horrible. But you actually can't, it's like iPhone 1 back in 2007. You can't have iPhone 13 without iPhone 1. And if we looked at iPhone 1 today, it looks like a piece of junk, like a kid's toy, but you cannot get to that later iteration, that later version. Same with WPX. You can't get to an evolved, more sophisticated, better functioning, working thing. It's just kind of the law of the universe that we all suck at the beginning. Not just us in doing something, but even products we create. It just sucks at the beginning. If you keep evolving. And I think for me, the only real failure is giving up, because as you said a bit earlier, when you have a failed, let's call it failed project, you tried out tools, you learned some skills, you met some people, you got experience, you practiced all these things that you can apply now to your next 15 projects over the next 10 years, which will also give you practice as well. So for me, the only failure is really giving up. And I think as teachers, which you and I are, I think, it's really one of the big challenges there is getting those students to get from 0 to 1 and take that first big step of actually doing it. And when it comes to web stuff, you don't even have to be public to the world. You can use something like Google Sites. You can go there for free with a Google account and create a web page. It'll look horrible, doesn't matter, because you've got to have that 1.0 version to get to a better one later.
Yeah. And just talking about being public as well, I think there are a lot of people who believe that the only way they can be successful is if they go out and they're on TikTok 25 times a day, or if they're making reels on Instagram, or if they're the next YouTube influencer. And I think it's really important to say, if you don't want that, if that's not who you are and that's not your personality, then don't do it. There are so many different ways to build a lifestyle business now. There are people out there with faceless YouTube accounts, doing motivational speeches over amazing music and things like that, and just building that listenership, viewership, and earning money. You can start a blog, which is basically writing and doesn't have to be your face. If you enjoy talking but don't enjoy video, you can start a podcast. There are just so many different ways that you can achieve your goals now. If you are not the person that, I know I don't. I mean, I just do not want to go and be a YouTuber, not at my age. I'm way past it and I don't want to do it. and I admire anybody who's out there doing it. But it's just not me anymore. And there's so many other routes and ways to go and do it. So when you are stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit, also I would urge you to assess your personality and say, what kind of business model suits my personality? What kind of person am I? And therefore, what kind of business model would I like to spend my time, trying?
Absolutely. And be authentic, and don't try to pretend to be something you're not. You have some pretty good view counts. I was checking your YouTube channel, Joe, before this interview. You've got like an 80 or 90,000 view video there. That's good.
I made a lot of videos in the early days. I made a lot of videos over the years, but and next year when my daughter finishes school here, we're going to get the backpacks on and start traveling again come next summer. So I have no doubt I'll be back on video showing all of our travels and everything. But
cool.
Yeah, actually the whole thing of scheduling videos, scripting them, getting the lighting right, especially when you travel, it's just a nightmare. So yeah. But anyways, I mean, it's a great channel. They're all great channels. There are just so many different ways to go out there now and make some money. So many.
Even the app you talked about for Trello, that guy is not an influencer. I have no idea who created that, but probably got a good business just from that little piggybacking app on Trello. There are 100 different ways, thousands of different ways it can be done. Okay, Joe, we're getting to the tough questions now. So for you personally, what does success look like?
Freedom, complete freedom. Just the ability to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, where I want in the world. Yeah. So, that's it really. Not much to add to that. Just that's what success is to me. Complete freedom.
Can I share mine?
Please.
For me, because my life in the last, since probably 2016, has taken some fairly interesting turns, animal-wise and dog-wise. So an organisation that I very much admired when I lived in the UK was the National Trust, which was started by 3 women, I think in the late 1800s, could have even been earlier, who set out on this mission to preserve all of those beautiful old buildings in the UK. And so today, I think they own over 300 properties or something. And my wife and I used to go every weekend to different National Trust properties. And to me, one of the extraordinary achievements of that organization is that they outlived the founders. So the whole thing gained so much momentum that now it's like a part of British life. Lots of people leave their house or whatever to the National Trust. They donate money. All of that. And for me, the success of my own life will be that Every Dog Matters, our foundation here to help rescue dogs and even all animals if they're abused, will outlive me and have real financial strength for, decades and maybe centuries to come. Who knows what will happen in the world. So the main focus of my life is to build the financial stability and the organization, institutional health and quality and all of that, so that the work of that foundation continues long after I'm not here anymore. So for me, that's success.
You've made me feel really shallow now, Terry.
Freedom is fantastic. It's very good. But this is a relatively new thing for me, Joe. It's just in the last years, all of that.
It's fantastic.
To have that lasting impact. And my hope is that the day after I die, all of the foundation work will continue on exactly as it did the day before, just making an impact. Because over in this part of the world, animals and particularly dogs are treated like unbelievably cruelly. And there's a massive amount of work and education to do here.
Yeah.
Freedom.
Have you heard of soy dogs? We have soy dogs here in Thailand.
I've met a couple of people. I met them at Battersea earlier this year when I was there for some training. Some people from soy were at Battersea in London for training, and I met some of them there. Thailand.
They do tremendous work here. They really do. Yeah. They're an exceptional organisation.
Anyway, Joe.
No, very good, Terry. I like it. Yeah.
So just to wrap up on the long questions, Joe.
Yes.
And I really look for a very straight, direct opinion here because we're always trying to improve and evolve. Tell me about your experience with WPX.
Sure. Well, basically, I think, very, very early days when I first came online, I was with one of our old favourites, HostGator, and they did me well for many years. But of course, it was shared hosting. And then, gosh, I've tried. Do you know, I can't even tell you the ones I've tried. I've been through 5 or 6. And I won't name names because it's not fair. But the one I came on two hosting plans before WPX was awful. It was so bad, and my site got hacked really badly. I had malware all through my site, and people were clicking on links and going through to porn sites and all sorts. It was an awful experience, and I spent maybe 6 months trying to work with their help department and getting zero help, and it was awful. So I then went and moved to another hosting company who were okay. They were all right, but I pretty much kind of rebuilt the site when I went over to these people. But they got really expensive really fast. The minute my views started to go up over a certain amount, they just became, I couldn't afford it. And so I saw, do you know, I'm not sure, I know who it was. It was Matthew, he wrote a big blog post.
Matthew Woodward.
Yeah. His blog post. He wrote a massive blog post on all of the different sites. He did a huge comparison with you and Kinster and WP Engine and all these other hosting sites. And yours pretty much came out on top. And I did a little bit more research, and what blew me away instantly was your customer service. I mean, I just haven't found, it's unrivaled in the industry, I would say, and not just in hosting. I think your customer service is unrivaled in every single platform I've ever tried to use online at any time. You come onto your site, your guys and girls are there within seconds. You ask them a question, they're happy to help. And you ask them any question, really. How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do this on my blog? How do I update my plugin? How do I, things that aren't even totally related to the hosting itself. They're always happy to help or to send me in the direction where I need to go to help. But it's the fact that they're there in seconds, which just blows my mind every single time. So if I've ever had any kind of, I didn't migrate, that's probably the wrong word. I completely changed my theme this year because I couldn't pass Google's Core Web Vitals on my site. And it was really bothering me because, I everything I had right, but the only thing I had was I was on a Divi theme. And I just kept looking up and seeing that Divi was a heavy thing. Divi's a really heavy thing. So I just bit the bullet and I completely changed my theme from Divi to Generate Press. And I needed to do all sorts of stuff on the back end. I needed to, back up my content, and I then had to do some kind of migrationary thing with moving the what's it called? The backup site that you create. Moving that onto the main site, all the rest of it. Anyway, your guys did it for me pretty much. I just went onto your customer service and said, hey, this is what I've got to do. And they were just like, sure, we can do that. We can do it right now. And it was fabulous. And I'm happy to now say I'm passing all my Core Web Vitals.
Brilliant.
So, yeah. So there's the speed of the hosting and, without doubt, Terry, the customer service. And I think also because I've done a blog post review for WPX hosting, and I think one of the things that I was really happy, and I'm not just saying this to blow smoke up your bum, but one of the things I was really happy to be able to include in the blog post was your story, and Every Dog Matters, and it really personalizes the brand, because so many of these big brands, you have no idea who's behind it. So It's actually really, certainly for a small business owner like myself, it's really nice to be able to say, and here's Terry, and this is who he is, and this is what he does, and here's, his movement for dogs, and what he, and why he built WPX in the first place. And so it was great to be able to add your personal story as well. I think that's a very attractive feature.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We were very deliberate, and I think for about 6 or 7 years now, we average about 25 seconds for response time on live chat. That always bugged me with other companies, not just hosting companies. And the thing that really bugged me with hosting companies when I was just an ordinary user was if something's gone wrong on your website, they just send you a knowledge-based article and expect you to fix it, which is a little bit like if my car breaks down and I take it to Toyota and the mechanic just throws me the book and says, just check out chapter 10, automatic transmission, just read that and fix the car. And you go, dude, I'm not a mechanic. So if you're like a surfing blogger or a travel lifestyle person, that's your thing, not actually being a web tech systems administrator. So
Yes.
we do have the knowledge-based articles, but if people want us just to fix it, because these guys are really experienced, they can troubleshoot it, find the problem in a couple of minutes, change some switch, move some file or whatever, and it's done, and you just get on with it. And it just struck me as bizarre that no other hosting company ever did that. They're getting a bit better now because we're 10 years on. Still not amazing in that respect, but I'm proud of that change. I'm not a big pride person, but I'm pretty happy with that change that we made. To me, it just makes sense, and it gives people like you a much better experience and get back to running your business. That was the whole thing behind it.
Yeah, and it does make you, stand out heads and shoulders above any of the competition. And like I said, I say this again because it's just so important, I think, that people who are listening to this or watching this video, is that the customer service is, without doubt, the best I've experienced in any platform I've used online. So I just think that's really important to point out because it's very true.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. Okay, last long-form question, Joe. For you, what is a change seeker?
Well, I think it's somebody who wants to have a legacy long after they leave the planet and not selfish, just to want to have freedom. I think to me, it's somebody who sees the world a little bit differently. I think it's somebody who, and I need to be careful how I say this because I don't want to sound like I'm being argumentative or something, but I think it's somebody who doesn't want to play by the standard societal rules. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't mean that somebody who wants to go and argue with people on social media, I don't think that at all. I mean people who will go out of their way to change their life in order to not have to play by the standard societal rules. So, for example, move an entire country in order to go somewhere where you're more welcomed or, it's a better living standard or whatever. So I think it's somebody who just sees the world differently and who wants something different for them and the people around them. And it's not necessarily changing the world. I think sometimes people they feel that they have to change the world in order to matter in life. And I don't think you always have to focus on that you're going to change the world, but I do think a change seeker is somebody who just wants to make it a little bit better. Who maybe just wants to leave it a little bit better than it was when they arrived. I think that's it. I think it's somebody who wants to make their life better for them and for the people around them. I would say
we have a principle inside the company, which is that we don't do things just because other companies do them, and we don't not do things just because other companies don't do them. You do not see other hosting companies having a dog shelter and a dog foundation that I'm aware of. Maybe I just haven't heard of it, but not to my knowledge. And what you do, and I think this is a very good principle to apply to an individual life like yours. So, and I think it's very easy just to get caught up and do what everybody else is doing. If you look at the old 40-year work for retirement model from the 20th century, which now a lot more and more people are waking up to, and you're obviously, a great teacher in that area. And I think your legacy, Joe, if I can be so bold, is the transformative effect you've had on those people that you talked about. So the guy who sold the FBA store for $2 million. You've now set him and his family on a completely different trajectory with a lot more options. And who knows what positive things will come out of that. So us teachers, we may not necessarily see our positive impact, but it can definitely be out there.
Yeah. And just on that, Terry, I love the way you ended that. I had an email back from one of my emails actually this week, which made me reread the email that I'd sent. And it was all about how if sometimes you go onto social media and you find it a little bit taxing, because it can be these days when you get onto social media and lots of people are arguing and the world is a terrible place and all the rest of it. I have a really good friend of mine on social media who just posts funny memes every day. And every time I go onto his account, I do not fail but to laugh my head off at the things that he's posting and his commentary to go with them. And so I also think that a change seeker or something within a change seeker is somebody that wants to kind of put a positive influence on the world, wants to make other people feel better when they're around them. And I like that. I really love to be around people who lift me up and who make me feel better as a person. And I think the more that we can go out and do that, I always try and encourage people to travel, because I really feel that traveling bolsters understanding and tolerance and differences in cultures and things like that. And I think that the more, whatever you do, the more you can just lift the people around you, make somebody smile. I used to always, in a podcast I did with Be the Reason Someone Smiles Today, and just lift somebody up. I think, what a great life you'll live.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And with the Dog Foundation, we work with a platform called workaway.info, which is about backpacking and traveling the world. And you get to stay at all these incredibly different places, organic farms and dog shelters and things like that. And they accommodate you and give you food and travel allowance, and you provide work. We've just started it this year. It's been a complete game changer for the shelter. And we've had these amazing people like in their 20s coming through from like Chile and Argentina and Mexico and all Estonia, all these places. And even though it's easy sometimes for us older folks, I'll put myself in that category, to go, young people, they're lazy and blah, 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 Generation X or Z, whatever it is. But actually, I've met phenomenal young people who are incredible, and I feel good about the future with those people around. So traveling can be phenomenal. And part of the goal with them coming to us is to take that philosophy of the large open yard, no cage dog shelter back to the rest of the world, so that in time that becomes the normal approach for all dog shelters everywhere, maybe, we hope. Because it doesn't have to be the old way, which is bad for dogs. It can be a completely different way as well.
And look how you're sharing that one person at a time. That's how important it is. When people are building businesses, they think they have to build an audience of millions, but actually you can change people's lives just one person at a time. That's all you need to, just one step and one person at a time.
Absolutely.
So it's fabulous.
Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure. I always love talking to fellow entrepreneurs and teachers. I'm really gratified to hear that you've had a great experience with WPX, and part of my challenge and the team here, we've got about 110 people in the company, is to maintain that consistency, because at the end of this year, we're coming up to 10 years already. Can't believe that. At my dog shelter for almost 3 years. Can't believe that either. Hardest thing I've ever done, by the way. Really
tough. The dog shelter?
Yeah. Hardest thing I've ever done. So difficult, but best thing I've ever done.
Why would you say it's the hardest? What would you say?
Because you deal with shocking animal cruelty on a daily basis. There are some dogs you just can't save. We have a certain capacity. We could have 1,000 dogs there. We get that approach with that many cases, and we just have to say no and hope that some other shelter can take them in. It's also it's incredibly expensive to care for dogs well with medical care. We have operations that cost many thousands of dollars if they've been hit by a car or something like that. As I say, it is the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's also the best thing I've ever done. So I don't have any regrets or negativity about it at all. But thank you, Joe. You've been generous with your time today. Hope you enjoyed yourself. I told you it would be a good interview.
It was great, and it's been such a joy to meet you, Terry. I've been wanting to meet you actually since I read your story on WPX, and I can't wait to come out there with my daughter and come and volunteer for you guys one summer. Looking forward to that. I've not been to Bulgaria, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. So it's lovely.